Hello everyone, we are Introspective, and welcome to the second video of our top-down shooter tutorial series. This video, we will be tackling the player shooting mechanics, specifically the player's ability to shoot, hit targets, and also the bullet script. Here's an example of how the player will shoot after this video. Previously, we've gone over the movement WSD and then the mouse. You have to press left click. Player will shoot out bullet prefabs which will disappear after hitting a collider. So now I'll be showing you the scripts. For this one, you'll need two scripts. One for the player shooting, which will be attached to the player prefab, and a bullet script which will be attached to the bullet prefab that will be instantiated by the player shooting script. So let's open up player shooting. So over here we have the player shooting script. We have 4 variables that will be used by the script. First, we have the transform variable, which is the attack point where the bullet will be instantiated from. The game object, which will be the prefab of the bullet that will be instantiated. The bullet force, which will be the travel speed of the bullet once you left click. And the animator, which will be discussed in a later video. We have 3 methods for the script. We have the start, update, and the shoot method. For the start method, this basically just takes the animator from the game object player, or rather like this, like so. Next we have the update function, which just checks if player presses left click or fire 1, this one. So when the player clicks left click, it will call the shoot method, which is this one. Now for the shoot method, this part of the code will be discussed in a later video, the one with the animation. This part of the code is the part that makes the bullet shoot. So first we have to declare a game object variable called bullet, which will instantiate the bullet prefab, the one that we put here, the attack point position, which is just the transformed a while ago, and as well as the rotation from the transform a while ago, as a game object, so that when it spawns in, it's considered a game object. Next, we need to rename the bullet so that it doesn't have the clone name once it spawns in the hierarchy. So we bullet.name equals bullet so that it's clean. So next we need to declare the rigid body for the bullet prefab that will contain the rigid body itself. The bullet.get component rigid body. And now, using that rigid body, we will add force to it, or adding force to it forward times the bullet force a while ago, 30 float, and the force mode will be impulse, so that it just adds force in one successive motion. Again, this is the player shooting script. The variables, the one that takes the animator, the one that checks if the player pressed shoot, and the shoot function, which instantiates the bullet prefab. And now we head to the bullet script. So for the bullet script, you don't really need a lot for it. You just need update and collision. So we need the update method here so that if the bullet flies for about 5 seconds, it'll get destroyed, so that it doesn't clutter the hierarchy. Next, we put the private void on collision enter method so that when the game object, the bullet, hits a collider, it will just destroy the game object, as well as when it enters a trigger collider, it will also destroy the game object so that it doesn't clutter the hierarchy again. Next, I'll be discussing the bullet prefab, which was mentioned earlier. So this bullet prefab is very simple. I just created a sphere. I put a sphere collider on it and a rigid body, and put the bullet script in the bullet itself. And I dragged it here so that it's the bullet. After making the bullet script and the bullet prefab, we now go to our player over here and drag our player shooting script, this one, to the player, and it will give us a bunch of options: the attack point, the bullet prefab, the bullet force, and the animator again, which will be later discussed in a video. But for the attack point, what you want to do is get your player, create an empty game object like so, and position it at the front of the player so that it doesn't touch the player's actual collider. Once you positioned it properly, you drag the attack point onto the attack point part of the player shooting script, and that's where the bullet prefab will spawn in when you press left click. Next, for the bullet prefab, you just simply want to go to the prefab, your bullet prefab I mean, and just drag the bullet prefab onto the interface. For the bullet force, you can edit that. You can make it so that 50, so that it goes even faster. Even make it 100 if you want some silliness. Now we'll be testing out this code that we made. So we simply hit play, and now just left click. The bullet goes zoom in because we put the bullet force as 100. But that about does it for the second video of this top-down shooter tutorial series. I really hope you learned something. And the next video will tackle the environment assets and how this area was made. But yeah, that's about it. Hope you enjoyed watching. Thank you.